Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Career Chronicles podcast. My name is Sloan. I'll be your host today. We are so excited to be joined by Stephanie Durkin, and we will get into her bio and our topic in just a little bit. But I did want to briefly reintroduce the podcast for those of you who are new to Career Chronicles. I am a technical recruiter who has been in this space for about 3 years and have a passion for increasing opportunities for women professionally within the tech industry, but also across all fields. And this podcast was born out of a desire to help organizations recruit and retain women. So I've had a blast getting to interview different women and male allies as well on their professional experiences and see what lessons we can learn from the work that they do. I also want to quickly thank our sponsors of the podcast, my team, Spyglass Partners. We are a staffing firm that is focused on supporting you with project-based and full-time hiring within IT, finance and accounting, supply chain, and executive searches as well. And then my other sponsor is Merit Media, a media company that has very kindly supported the podcast and getting our episodes up and running on different platforms. So wanted to give them quick shout outs. And then, of course, want to introduce our guest, Stephanie. Stephanie is a talent leader at Collins Aerospace. Her focus is on all things talent for their global workforce. She has 16 years of HR experience, a strong breadth and depth in talent acquisition, talent management, and learning development. She is a people-first talent leader who is passionate about developing talent. We have that in common, Stephanie. And then outside of work, Stephanie spends time with her husband and 2 young boys who keep her very busy. And I understand and can relate to that. I have an 11-month-old daughter. How old are your boys?
9, and my youngest just turned 4.
Oh my gosh, so fun.
We're
So you're in the
fun
hustle
stages
and bustle of the activities and going to everything. And
my little one's
no free time.
finally like on the stage of like we can do more. You know, he still does nap, but we don't. You know, we can still go away. Do
you don't have to operate full. Like I feel like my life is completely dependent on my daughter's schedule. Like we time all of our meals and activity. Like when my family wants to do dinner, I'm like, well, it has to be at 5 p.m. because she has to be winding down by 6:30.
Yeah, it's like a new chapter once they reach a certain age, and it's like you can go do more, explore more, and it's fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. So obviously we're both in the talent management space and we both have a passion for helping people grow and develop in talent. And I think we share a lot of the same passions and causes for concern of, the things we're noticing. So I think that this is a great, alignment and bringing you onto the podcast because I think you have a lot of insight to discuss about supporting women professionally and in the workforce and how you've seen that in your own career and at your own organization. But before we dive into that, do you want to briefly share how we got connected and just give us a very quick overview about how you got into your career?
Yeah, so Crystal Hicks, you had on your podcast.
She was my very first episode.
Oh, months ago? Yeah, she's awesome. I love her. So her and I go way back. I met her at Robert Half International doing staffing when I got out of college. And so she and I just have had a good, friendship throughout the years. And I have just loved watching her soar with her career. So now she's awesome. Is the founder of Job Talk and, just staying in touch with her. But yeah, so then you and I got connected and here we are. So yes, I work at Collins Aerospace. We have a vast portfolio of aerospace and defense. And then specifically, I work in our interiors business unit. And if you've ever been on an airplane, you've seen or touched our products or services, we do anything inside of an aircraft. So seating, galleys, inserts, lavatories, you name it. That's the business unit that I.
So if we want the seats on the airplane to be bigger, everyone needs to message you. That's what we need to do.
I go through our seating and our production and seeing kind of what's coming out. It is the experience that is kind of coming and what first class or super first class, something I've never been on, not sure if I'll ever be on, but it's insane. So yeah, great products that we do. But so specifically, I lead our talent organization for interiors, and we focus on driving, talent strategies to really meet this evolving global workforce. And then my group is really focused on employee experience and engagement, and then as well as how do we enhance how we grow and develop our workforce. So it's exciting work.
It goes hand in hand, right? I think people forget, they think of us as just recruitment and it's on the front end, but it's, I was just talking about this
with somebody else.
It's the life cycle, and the culture you created an organization is part of your recruitment strategy. People will be attracted to your organization if it's a place where people enjoy working. That's been a common theme that's come out of the podcast, that if you want to attract a certain, whether that's stronger technical talent or if you want to attract more women, whatever it is, that all starts with the culture you create in your organization.
Exactly. And it's really you got to hook them fast, right? I think it's within the first
yeah, or you lose them.
You have to hook them. And so, what are companies doing that's innovative, and how are we continuing to attract and then retain and then develop? It's a full life cycle.
Yeah. So one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, just given your depth in this space of talent acquisition and talent management, how do you assess where you need to develop talent? And I know that can be interpreted a lot of different ways, whether that's figuring out what gaps you have in your current talent pool or your workforce. But what does that look like for you?
So, you can do this in a few ways. And it really, to your point, you have, what is it that you're looking for? But if we're looking at assessing our talent holistically, you could do that through pulsing your organization through different surveys. There's the exit surveys. Why is your employees leaving? How do we retain and engage them? Different listening strategies. There's assessments. There's talent reviews and succession planning. Understanding the gaps to some of our critical roles and how are we accelerating this readiness. So there's so many ways, and all that data, tells the story. But the data is only good if you actually do something with it, right? And act on it.
And that is the biggest, I think that's the biggest weakness I've seen in organizations, is that all that information just sits on the shared drive somewhere.
It's telling you what your employees need and want, and what you needed to do as an organization to ensure that you have the right talent in the right place at the right time. And so, the data is there. And so what are you going to do with that? And utilizing that data to understand what are these common trends, these themes that your employees are saying that they want and they need. And then that comes the fun part. And that's really where, a lot of the COEs kind of work together. But what are you building, driving different programs and initiatives to, create a place for your employees to engage, and then grow and build their career. So it's a number of different ways you can do it, and just making sure that you're acting on it in those, whatever avenue and channel that you're doing to assess your talent. Options.
Since you mentioned exit interviews and you have that data and you've probably read, I don't know how many, 50, hundreds of exit interviews, have you noticed any trends of common reasons that women leave the workforce, or specifically, leave these professional roles? Are there any trends there that you've noticed that we could learn something
so it's the career development, it's the career growth. And I think most organizations, if not all, are seeing that in their exit surveys. And it's, accelerating the readiness of how do we ensure we're getting there. And I think that also comes with, what types of programs you have within your organizations that are advancing and championing and advocating for our women to get to those next opportunities. So it's a lot on career growth, career development, advocating for our women in the workforce. And we're seeing that. And I know, many other organizations are seeing that.
Yeah, that segues nicely into another question I wanted to ask you. But in your experience, how do we support women in the workforce? Whether that's, if you have more broad suggestions, or if you have specific strategies that you and your team have implemented over the years.
I love this topic. So I'm big champion supporting women in the workplace and outside of the workplace. And, where are those barriers that we can break down to really foster that inclusivity? Personally, I'm always inspired and motivated by, my peer female colleagues and friends. And one thing that has helped me in my career and has made me successful is mentorship. And so when I was looking for a mentor years ago, it was critical that this person had to be a female leader that was a mom, at that time. And still, those things were imperative to me, how to help me navigate my career, but also as a working mother. And so I look at—
When did you first start seeking that out? Sorry, I'm selfishly asking this question as a new working mom.
When did you— for that one, I actually remember it was 2017. I had my youngest was just a couple years old. So, but as I was starting to really grow within my career and start to, understand my path and grow and accelerate fairly quickly, that I was like, all right, I need the right person to kind of help me navigate this. And I knew there were certain criteria that I needed as a mentor. And I have many mentors. I'm, more than one, and they're all in different spaces of what I'm looking for from a development. But this specific one is, how do I navigate going up the ladder as a working mom? And I was paired with the best person. We have a good friendship still to this day, and she has helped me really navigate that. And so I look to other organizations, if you don't have a mentorship program or if you don't have a sponsorship program, do it. It is an opportunity for, to add value and have individuals play a critical role and a valuable role in how you look at career and development, and then opportunities of how you're going to advocate and champion for women in the workforce. So definitely, that would be probably my number one recommendation: mentorship or sponsorship opportunities to, develop in your organization.
Is that something that your organization already had set up, or did you, because I think you said you kind of phrased it as you got matched with somebody. So was that already set up?
Yeah, we had a mentor, and I had gone to my leader at the time, and I was like, I'm looking for a mentor. And, RTX, which is our parent company, we have about 180,000 employees. So there is a lot of us here. And so I was looking to him to understand who is the best person, like who could you recommend from your network? And he immediately, mentioned his peer who was in a different business unit. And what was nice is there was also some reverse mentoring too, because not only was she a mother, she was a young mother. So there was opportunities where my little boy was a little bit older, but we could share and, offer different advice and recommendations. But she was also had a very successful career growth and kind of help navigate certain challenges, but also look at opportunities that would help me beyond my current role at that time.
Yeah.
Do you think this is sponsorship too as well? Sorry, I wanted to add.
Yeah. Talk to me about what the difference is between mentorship and sponsorship. Like, what is that?
Yeah. So mentorship, you're really utilizing more, someone that's typically a couple levels higher than you to help kind of, work through different challenges or navigate a career and share their career opportunities and career journeys with you. But sponsorship is when someone who's usually more senior level, right? And for us in our company, it's someone that's more vice president or above that has that kind of political power where they can really help advocate and make moves happen. And so that's where the movement happens, and they're advocating and they're championing for you. But you have to understand there's a level of all of that through coaching, mentor, and sponsorship, right? It all kind of gets webbed in, but sponsorship is more focused on how can we advocate and move you and advance you in your career. And mentorship's really navigating, here's my career journey. Let's talk about challenges. How can I assist you and kind of help develop you? But both are extremely impactful.
Yeah, you got to have both, because I would imagine, so when you're going to your mentor to say, okay, now my boys are in these activities that are happening at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon during work hours. How do I navigate juggling work and being a very present parent and creating opportunities for my kids? That mentor may have gone through that, and you guys can troubleshoot and come up with some strategies. Whereas your sponsor, you could say, I see a need for, XYZ in the organization. I want to take that on and become the chair of this committee, or I'm looking for this promotion, or I want to be here in 5 years. And they're the person at the table saying, Stephanie has really made an impact in these ways in organizations. I think it's time we promote her to this. They're kind of your vocal piece at the table.
And they're so impactful. I've had both that have helped me in my journey. And I think it's important when you're searching for a mentor to really understand, what are you looking for? So again, I have a few mentors. I have one.
Right. I love that you said that.
A head of DE&I. So I'm really trying to build that muscle of DE&I and no better way than getting paired with our head of DE&I to kind of talk through that, right? And so there's different areas. I have an individual that is fantastic with storytelling, fantastic with presentation, executive presence, and how she rolls out. And she's so calming and the way she does everything. So I look at her to help review some of everything. So you can utilize different people in different ways, but just knowing what are you looking for, which will help bring a better connection.
Yeah, it sounds like your organization has a lot of these structures in place already. Have you had to go outside of your organization to find certain mentors that I mean, I know you're looking for different types of mentors to help you with different aspects. Have you had to seek out mentorship on your own? Because I'm wondering what advice we can give to people whose organizations don't have these structures in place.
Yeah, I mean, there's opportunities, within your organization. I always tell people too, who outside of our company could you also benefit from? Are there different, programs and whatnot,
Yeah.
associations that you could also be
Yep.
connected to, because and that's how you build your network, and that's how you can build some of these mentorships. So I think it's utilizing, who you know too, of, hey, who can you connect me to? And that's how I would always end a get to know our connection conversation, is with like, is there anyone else that you think I would benefit from connecting with? And that's how you start to grow, and you start to build those connections that can really blossom into some good healthy mentor relationships.
Yeah, I've heard this idea because being in the recruiting space, I am having a lot of conversation on LinkedIn with job seekers, and there's a lot of conversations around how many people do you have to have in your network, or key people in your network that are in your corner in order to land your next job. And I've heard this number of 10 to 12 thrown around, that you need 10 to 12 people outside of your organization that would vouch for you or reach out to you if they had an opportunity on their team. So it is important to not only have a mentor or mentors within your organization, you have to have them outside of your organization as well.
Yeah. Strategic networking is
Strategic
really
networking.
is really important. And as you build those connections, that's how you build your network outside, and get into the different companies and whatnot.
Yeah. And now that you've reached the point in your career, I imagine you are also serving as a mentor and or maybe potentially a sponsor to people. Now that you're, giving back in that way, how do you approach that? How do you collect the input and feedback from the folks that you're mentoring to make sure that you're supporting them the best way you can?
Well, I look at it, between the mentor relationships and then like leading my team. It's the fundamentals of a good leader is knowing your team. And so knowing your mentee or mentor, however you want to look at it, and really getting to know that person. So for me, it's, understanding their core values. What are they looking for? What are their career aspirations? What do they value, right? And really trying to understand that individual and what do they need in regards to support, and how can I help support them? And really, based on building those connections, that's how you're able to drive a more successful relationship within mentor, and you building that trust, or within the team. So really kind of, you got to get to know people to understand them. And then that's how you know where you play a role and how you can help.
How do you get to know the people on your team? Do you have more of an informal approach, or do you have like weekly one-on-ones set up? What's your strategy there?
One thing about me is I really like building connections with people. And so mine are weekly one-on-ones. And I ensure that the first 10 to 15 minutes are not focused on work. It is, what did you do over the weekend? Tell me about your family. What's going on? Like, let's just connect. And that's how you get to know a lot about someone just on those kind of, nice, genuine conversations. And they'll kind of ease into the matter of what needs to be
the work.
the work. And so there's opportunities, where they'll share with me what they're working on, right? And where do they need my support? How can I help? And then there's opportunities for me to also be like, what do you need more from me? How can I support you? What are you not getting enough from me, right? So there's that opportunity to offer, the feedback there. And we have career conversations. And then I'll provide feedback too. But I will say the feedback doesn't always have to be on the one-on-ones. I'm big on fast and meaningful feedback, whether it's good or constructive. That really
providing it when it's available, when you have it real time.
Yeah. And I usually recommend it's via phone or Zoom or something, right? Not really via email. But the fast and meaningful feedback provides more of that future growth, future focused, growth oriented. And it's real time. You can kind of talk to the scenario, talk to the situation. Again, it could be good or constructive. But I don't recommend just always waiting for the one-on-ones. It doesn't need to be every one-on-one. Real time, quick, easy, meaningful feedback. And it really helps kind of focus at more growth focused, oriented, and really keeps transparency too. Like that individual knows where they sit. It offers recognition, right? Oh, you did a great job presenting that or facilitating that, blah, blah, blah. So there's opportunities to do it, not just on the one-on-ones, but the more real time.
There's so much peace of mind as a team member when you know where you stand with your supervisor and you know that they see your efforts and that they trust you. And, it makes the constructive criticism, when there is feedback that you can improve upon, it makes that so much more well received, because you know that supervisor knows you're doing a good job, and you know that they know what your strengths and talents are. I'm like, and they know that, and they like me, and they have this rapport with me. So when they do give me feedback that I can, improve upon, it's not seen as a personal attack. It's seen as like, wow, this person thinks I'm amazing and thinks I'm worth the feedback and the time and effort to develop me. Curious, are you guys fully remote or are you in person?
So we're all over. I am fully remote. I've been hybrid before COVID, and then since COVID, I've been remote. My office technically is North Carolina, and I've been doing a lot of travel to North Carolina over the last couple weeks, and I'll be heading there again next week. But my team is based in Philippines and in the U.S., and my U.S. employees are remote too.
Yeah,
so I'm all over. My peers are hybrid.
We're all over.
We're all over.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of noise out there about whether good culture can be built on fully distributed, fully remote teams. And I think your leadership approach is phenomenal. And I think you're building a culture that is based on, human connection. That, you mentioned that in the start of your one-on-ones, you just talk life and you just get to know people. And so it can be done remotely.
Human-centered leadership is, it works, right? It's how you
human-centered leadership. Yeah. And I'm sure that plays a part in how you hire too, for your organization, as being human-centered in hiring. That is something that I've talked about on the podcast, is just being a decent human being when you're interviewing people, putting them at ease and being their advocate in that process and looking for their strengths. So I love that you called that out for sure. Would love to, since we're talking about remote, and, versus in person, there are a lot of organizations that are doing these return to office mandates. Can you speak to what an organization can do to mitigate the impact of a return to office mandate and its impact on caretakers? And I know you and I are both working moms, and we both probably enjoy the flexibility that working remote provides us. Not all working moms have the luxury to be fully remote. Right. And if caretakers, mom or dad, are in the position of being mandated to return to work and it's a non-negotiable, what can organizations do to keep caretakers at the forefront of their minds when making these mandates?
It's definitely something that's on the forefront. And so, RTX, Collins, we are hybrid, we're remote, we're on site. It really depends on your role. But the way of working is just different now. And each company is different. And I know a lot more companies are kind of mandating and pushing more of that on-site, at least hybrid approach. It's going to have a big impact. It's going to have a big impact no matter what. It's just imperative, I think, that if organizations are rolling out a really effective change management approach. I think you have to really think through the impact that this can have on your employees, and what impact could that be, and who is this impacting? It's also really important to understand. So if we think through like that DE&I piece, you really have to be able to take the needs of everyone individually, and that's the inclusion aspect of it. Whose lives or circumstances are we impacting? That's the inclusion part. And then how do you navigate the change resilience of it? How do you create a space for folks to process this change, and how will they navigate that? And so I think you have to have an effective change management approach. You have to understand the impact that this is going to have. You also have to understand an official, really good rollout plan on it. All right, daycare, caretakers. Look at me. When we were finding out we were pregnant with our second, it was my husband and I knew we were pregnant, and the next person who knew the next day was a daycare. Because
get on that wait list
for daycare is off. It was 15 months. So you have to understand that it's not something that can happen like this. And what does that look like? And just even for caretakers, for individuals taking care of their elderly parents, like there's a huge impact on how that changes flexibility and what they're kind of doing. And so how do you effectively roll it out? We look at also, if you look at some of these external factors of like our changing workforce, companies are what are they looking at? What do the employees want? What does that look like? Some companies are going to 4-day work weeks. Some are going remote. What does that flexibility look like? And so you really have to assess like the talent, the culture, how you're going to, engage your employees. And so it's all got to be thought through, effectively. And then what does your rollout look like? And there's got to be an effective process. And you have to really think through who is this impacting in order to be effective across it. But each company is different. We're kind of all over the place. We've got some, I will say we have a good work-life flexibility here. I mean, we do on-site. We have roles that are on-site. We do production and maintenance. We have roles that are hybrid. We have roles that are remote. We have a 980 work schedule where we have every other Friday off. Some people do every Friday off. And so we have a nice flexibility. That's common in defense companies, though, of that schedule. But, what are you doing to continue to evolve with this changing workforce and especially those that want the flexibility and how we work?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think flexibility is the common theme. I think being inclusive minded, always trying to put yourself in the shoes of as many people as you can, collecting that input and feedback from team members, and then being receptive in listening to what the feedback is. I think and that starts from the culture you create. Employees have to feel comfortable speaking up when something's not working for them. I use the example of my current team. This is the first time that I'm a working mom and having to pump during work, and I'm remote. And so you would think pumping is easier when you're fully remote, but there are sometimes camera on expectations. And I'm like, you don't want me to be camera on right now. And, I had to learn how to communicate that. And my boss took the time to say, anytime you're in that situation, feel free to turn your camera off, decline the call, leave the meeting, whatever you need to do. And so he was open to me vocalizing that this was a new experience for me. They may not have thought about it before if they haven't had an employee in that situation. And then he was open to me handling it however I saw fit, because there was that trust and sort of two-way communication. So I think you got to have that.
You have to have flexibility, because what works for you may not work for them.
Or for another person. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, when I look at, a role and coming into a role, it's in talking with my leader. It's listen, I have 2 kids. I make it clear. I have 2 kids. I want to ensure I'm with them after school, getting to them their sports and enjoying those last couple hours before it's bedtime, right? Like that is important to me.
That's family time.
I will, right. And I will get my work done in it, but that is key, a core value of mine, family. And so I make it clear. And so knowing that I have that support from my leadership is important. And then knowing what my team needs me, because what they need from flexibility might be different for me. And that's okay. I just, knowing how I can support.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we've come close to our time, if you can believe it. I want to make sure I have the chance to ask you. My last question for every guest is, when or where have you felt most empowered as a woman?
Oh, that's a hard one.
It's not an easy question to end it on.
Yeah, I don't know if I could give you an exact example, but I will say that I think for me, it's who I'm surrounded with or who I'm surrounded by that makes me feel empowered. So I have awesome family. I have a group of girlfriends that hype me up. I have colleagues who value my input and perspective. My husband is constantly supporting me and cheering me on and helping me get rid of my imposter syndrome, right? Like who I surround myself with, I think to me is what makes me feel empowered.
Yeah, you're not the only one that's answered in that way. That is a common answer, that it's just your community of support. We've talked a lot on the podcast about how to build that community of support and how important it is. And you've hit it already in this episode, that when you're looking for mentors, you have to find mentors for different things, just like you have to build a community of support for different things. You need your girlfriends for one thing. You need a good supervisor for that professional support. You need your partner at home to support you professionally, but also obviously personally. So you need, you know, that well-rounded circle of people around you. So I love that answer. Well, thank you, Stephanie, so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a joy to chat with you. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think this was super helpful to help organizations think about how they support women in the workplace and how we can build communities of both mentorship and sponsorship as well. So thank you for sharing your insights. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, should they reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Send me a message on LinkedIn. Yeah. And you're doing great things with this, these podcasts. So keep it up. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.